Welcome back to Heads Up SA. Today we take you to Katlehong, Ward 63, where the ANC Youth League celebrated its 81st anniversary. The event brought together comrades from YCL, SASCO, COSAS and others. The branch chairperson Nathi Nkuwane opened the program with a strong message, tackling youth unemployment, the dominance of foreign nationals in local spaza shops, and the need for discipline when young people protest issues affecting their communities.
We are saying we want permanent employment from the government. Phansi, Mama PWP, Phansi. We no longer want these EWPs. Yes, just need opportunity to squash training data, squash to spatalama Wi-Fi, but it's not enough complete. Some of us is yakula, some of us banabantwana. Being young doesn't mean we have responsibility. How do you solve your responsibility in a 3.5? That's a minimum wage, comrade. Isn't those kupuga each and every day? The second one is championing the interest of the young people in our community and the spaces as a pillar of the comrades.
He also urged comrades to strengthen recruitment, warning that without a strong youth league, the ANC itself will struggle. After the opening speeches, the spotlight fell to the guest of honor, former ANC Youth League President and current Member of Parliament, Gigaba.
Young Lions, roar! Viva African National Congress, viva! Viva! Viva SACP, viva! Viva! Viva!
In his lecture, Gigaba revisited the roots of Youth League, spoke on unity, the state of the ANC today and the challenges facing young people in South Africa. He stressed the importance of the ANC Youth League being more than just a follower of the ANC but a true voice of the youth, ready to hold leadership accountable. We won't spoil too much for you, because now we bring you the full speech from Gigaba himself. Sit back, listen closely and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Does the Youth League still have the power to revive the ANC?
Viva ANC Youth League, viva! Viva! Roar, Young Lions, roar! Viva African National Congress, viva! Viva! Viva SACP, viva! Viva! Viva COSATU, viva! Viva! Viva SANCO, viva! Viva! Long live the Progressive Youth Alliance, long live! Long live! Long live the Progressive Youth Alliance, long live! Long live! Long live the ANC Women's League, long live! Long live! Siyabonga comrades ukuthola ithuba lokunjoyina namhlanje. as you celebrate the 81st anniversary of the ANC. There are two things that I think among people. I didn't know these things. I think among figure around 96. But when I came to live here. So when someone greets you, you must also expect the question, so who are you? I must confess I never understood what it meant. Because here I was standing in front of you now. What answer do you want? It confused me. Until one comrade said to me, say, President, just relax and say, yeah, I know you. And then I stopped philosophizing a greeting. The second thing I learned was that Mabe refera kuweba zombiza negama nespo. Umanus Gigaba. Our President Manus Gigaba. Why do you have to mention my surname? Because mentioning my name is always enough. But again I was told, Chief, stop philosophizing these things. It's just an introduction, relax. So when I've been listening to the speakers before me, addressing me in name and surname all the time. It still hits me. They're just making sure you just don't think it's Manus. Any Manus, or you don't think it's Gigaba, any Gigaba, it's this one. And I still can't avoid philosophizing, wondering why. Because but I'm happy to be here, comrades. One of the things though, which always got to me, because this one now, I used to get it in all the provinces, especially outside KZN. No, President, the Tata, Gigaba joined the ANC. What would have been Ibad level? I mean, if this is Iraq, what would have been Ibad? Why is it assumed that because we are from KZN, you actually could have been something else, not ANC? And unfortunately that we couldn't just let it go. Because at the time it was important for us to emphasize the point which KZN belongs to the ANC. Because we had fought a hard struggle to convince our comrades, number one, Uti, being from KZN and being Zulu doesn't mean you are by birth IFP. And number two, that the violence taking place in KZN and in parts of Gauteng was not a tribal conflict, but it was a state-sponsored war against the people. And so how the ANC responded to this depended on how it framed the problem we were facing. And so that I could not just let go. I always had to respond to it because I felt Sagelena. Then the ANC Youth League, fortunately in KZN, was the first to down to talk to us and understand what were we discussing, how were those discussions going, what did we hope to achieve, and how did we get the IFP brigade to agree to the concept of a united South Africa when the official policy of the IFP was a federal South Africa. But we continued with those engagements. It's important for us to remember the journey that we have traversed, because 81 years is a long time. It's a very long time. Abantu abaningi never reach 81 years. At 81 years, you are no longer a parent, you are a grandparent. So many things have begun not to work, no money. Because natural attrition is taking place. Your body is beginning to give up. You are beginning to surrender to the laws of nature. You no longer have recent memory. Most of your memory is old. They will say to you, in 1948, on the 10th of December, actually in detail, and you look at them and wonder, how do you remember in such crisp detailed things which happened so many years ago? And we say, I put a photographic memory. No. Naturally, you are becoming senile. You no longer remember the things which happened recently, but you remember vividly the things which happened long ago. Because those things remain ingrained in your memory, except the ones that happened just recently. So, 81 years is an important feat. Now imagine being a child, an 81-year-old child of a parent who is still alive. How old would that parent be? Aren't we just lucky that the parent of this 81-year-old child is still alive? And the parent of this 81-year-old child is still alive because this child has continued to produce and reproduce a membership and leadership that has ensured that this parent continues to reinvent themselves. Without the ANC Youth League, the ANC itself would long be dead. Why was this organization formed? But before I get there, let me start with under what conditions was the ANC Youth League established? Because the history of an organization is a living organism. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists in a concrete environment where there are many contradictions, some fighting for it to continue to live and others fighting for it to die. That's why somebody earlier quoted Antonio Gramsci when he reflected on a social phenomenon in terms of which he said the old is dying, but the new is trying to be born. And we've gone on over the years to interpret that in many different ways. Because sometimes the old refuses to die, even as it will inevitably die. It will die. Everything we know will not always be here. Life is made up of plastic material. Nothing will ever remain the same. All will change and eventually will die. Be empires, societies, everything we know will eventually die. Let me make a stark illustration. So Makumila, the light you see, with your eyes is not today's light. It's light that has been traveling from the sun for millions of years to reach your eyes. Can you imagine that? You are not seeing something that is the light made today. You are seeing light that has been traveling for millions of years to reach your eyes. The stars you see, if you go out now, don't exist now. You are seeing them as they existed millions of years ago. Remember, these stars are far away from where you are. The only real thing you see is you who are here in front of me right now. But everything out in space, and some of those stars are dead by now. In today's terms, they are dead. But my eyes see them still alive because millions of years ago they were alive. Everything will change. What is will one day not be. And so the ANC Youth League was formed at that time under certain conditions. One, what was the Second World War? And this Second World War was radicalizing African communities, radicalizing African youth, and creating conditions for youth to become restless. These youth were studying at universities in the country, learning knowledge and information which made them question the society in which they lived and which made them to reject that society. The second condition, together with the radicalization of the youth, was the radicalization particularly of urban workers and urban spaces. So the urban working class was becoming more radical. If you remember, 2 years after the formation of the Youth League, there was the mine workers' strike that resulted in the deaths of hundreds, if not thousands, of mine workers. It was at the time the biggest mine or workers' strike to have taken place in South Africa. But then, the ANC Youth League was formed at a time when the ANC was extremely weak. The very existence of the ANC at the time hanged by a thread. The ANC could have died by the time the Youth League was formed. In 1937, the All African Natives Congress had been established. Established because there was anger among certain quarters of the African people about the tactics and strategies of the ANC and the manner in which the ANC was approaching the issues of oppression. People were critical of what they regarded a timid leadership of the ANC. They were critical of the approaches of the movement and decided to branch away from, because the ANC had in the 1930s changed its name from the South African Native National Congress into an African National Congress. But the question remained, why was it the African National Congress? Why was it an African National Congress? Why was it not a Democratic Party? Why was it not any other name? Why African National Congress? And as it was established, the ANC Youth League sought to answer that question in a number of ways. So if you read the Youth League Manifesto of 1944, it is a response to all of these conditions in which the ANC Youth League was formed. A response to the war, a response to the divisions that were taking place in African society and within the ANC in particular, the organizational weaknesses of the ANC and the lack of ideological outlook within the African National Congress. These young people put together two types of contrasting societies. A white perspective of life, where they were saying, we are all individuals who are just living and tolerating one another towards our common destruction. Everybody is living for themselves. Everybody must try to do the best for their individual selves without worrying about what should happen to the collective us. And the ANC Youth League said, no, we reject this society. But the African looks at us as a commune, as a collective, that each one of us is responsible for others. I exist because you are. Your misfortune becomes my misfortune. Your progress is my progress. I am therefore responsible for your progress as you are responsible for mine. We are building a nation towards common advancement and progress. And all of us must take responsibility for how we get to that type of society. And this is how the ANC began to frame the problem of South Africa and the type of future that we want. This is how the ANC began to infuse into the ANC the creed of African nationalism by affirming the right of the oppressed to fight for their freedom themselves using the methods they have chosen themselves without seeking permission from their oppressed. By affirming the national pride and confidence of the African and saying, before we can unite with everybody else, let us first unite with ourselves as Africans and affirm our independent right as a group to fight for our freedom. After all, this is why the ANC was established. And then they said, but to do that, you need a united ANC. You need an ANC that is able to confront the divisions taking place. So the ANC sought to resolve these two contradictions that were taking place at the time. The splintering among Africans and the weaknesses within the ANC. And it said the only way you can unite our people is by one, injecting the ANC with the spirit of African nationalism. Two, putting forward a radical program of action that will make everyone, black or white, particularly Africans and other black groups, to see the ANC as the ultimate legitimate leader of our people. Where are we to? For every African, there is an organization. 42 new political organizations were established last year and registered to vote, and another one was established this year and will also be registered to vote. Do you know what it means? It means that Africans will never again, unless we change that, speak with one voice and act in unison. But what is happening within the white community? There are only two organizations zasishiyana. Twididino twididana. Bangaphikisana nje nento encane. You know, stories sika twididano. Bahlezi babhurekile, they decide ukuthi yena sekhaya. Ake siphumelela ngaphandle ngesishane nje. Then ngelunch to ayisekelele asambe kusona sisidlala. One thing that white people will never do is to abandon their common interests as a group by allowing themselves to be divided when they know that their material interests are at risk if we, the Africans and black people, are united. They will never be divided on any significant matter, knowing that the native remains a threat to their ill-gotten material benefits. And that is why, while they unite themselves, they divide us. If I want to form an organization, all I need to do is to go to them, because they know the more organizations we establish among black people, the better it is for them, because we are not able to stand united. And that is the issue the ANC Youth League in 1944 confronted. And then the Youth League looked at the ANC and said, no. Instead of standing up to defend the leadership, and you see, this is where you must carefully understand your role as the youth of the ANC. You are not the youth league of the ANC leadership. You are not an NEC youth league. You are an ANC youth league. You have two responsibilities. You owe your allegiance to the youth. You are the youth league of the youth. When young people at UJ are not able to register because NSFAS, thousands has kicked out thousands of them, the youth league should stand up first and foremost before everyone else. Yes. Fight for it. The youth must not look for the ANC youth league and wonder what its viewpoint is on a matter which affects them. They must take it for granted that before they open their eyes, the youth league will already be on that issue. Secondly, you are the youth of the ANC. Your job is to bridge the gap between the young and the old. You must bring the youth into the ANC and bring the ANC to the youth. You don't owe allegiance to the leadership of the movement. You respect them. You reserve the right to disagree with them. To articulate the views of the youth and be uncompromising in doing it. So from the moment, the very moment the youth league was formed, it was preoccupied with these three interrelated issues. With the struggle of the African people for total emancipation. For total emancipation, not just for freedom. For total emancipation. For the right of our people to partake of the wealth of our country and advance themselves through that wealth to become equals, not only with whites in South Africa, but with the peoples of the world. As Anton Lembede said, it is only when the African is free that the African can, using that platform of freedom, elevate themselves to a position where they are equal to everyone and contribute something new to human civilization. The question is, what do we mean by total emancipation? Siyakhuluma, but you know, I'm a comrade. Sometimes when you listen to our speeches, there is an issue that you must address, which is, if colonialism was the usurpation of the natural wealth and the labor and the capital of our country as a result thereof, therefore, the control of the forces and the means of production by a racial minority, would freedom mean only the right to vote while the means of production are still in the hands of this minority? Would that mean that we have decolonized South Africa? No. So the issue of the struggle of our people remains your responsibility, it remains your priority. And you need to frame it in terms of the challenges we are facing today and the type of society we want to create. Oftentimes, Sikasha behind umbuza comrades, his strategic objectives say create a non-racial, non-sexist, democratic and prosperous South Africa. Can this point now? Will South Africa ever be non-racial if abantu abamnyama behlala ekhaya wonke abelungu behlala eSouth? Is that what we mean by freedom? No. Is that democracy? No. Is it non-racialism? No. How can you be equal to someone who has better resources than you, or to umbuka wazi ukuthi ngifisa ukuba njengawe, in actual fact ngiyanayo ukuba njengawe? The second thing which preoccupied the youth league was the unity and cohesion and the leadership of the ANC, of the struggle. Humanity leadership, ANC, ANC as a movement, how it leads society. The unity and cohesion of the ANC and its leadership of our struggle, and injection with an ideological outlook which would enable it to lead that struggle. Today, if you were to answer that question, what would you say? And then, it was preoccupied with the role of the youth under the leadership of the ANC in that struggle. So, from the day the Youth League was formed, it was not worried about individuals. It was worried about the process of struggle and how that struggle was executed, and the instruments through which that struggle had to be prosecuted. What therefore should become your role at this present day and time? The ANC needs a youth league that will rally young people behind it, that become the epitome of the best among the youth of our society. Don't look at us who have come before you and those who have obtained higher levels of education as poster boys or poster women. Use us as an inspiration for you to rise to that level and exceed that level. Because at all times the youth must look at the ANC Youth League and want to belong to it. Kumele makufika umzali, makufika i-Youth League, umzali athi mntanami, ngisho ungakuyeka kodwa mawubelonge kwi-ANC Youth League ngizoba right. Because when they look at this organization, they see seriously. Seriously. That's why Ulembede challenged the youth in 1940 and said, we are not called to enjoyment, but we have a responsibility to conduct a difficult struggle and ensure that every young person sees in the ANC Youth League an organization to which to belong. What do you preoccupy yourself with? How are you viewed by the youth in your community? What picture of the ANC do you portray in your community? What do the people of South Africa think of the ANC when they look at you? And I'm asking this question not to you as a group, I'm asking it to each one of you as an individual, because if you can answer that question honestly, then you are able to answer the question completely. That is the first task we have for you. That you must be everywhere the youth are. And everywhere understand that you carry on your shoulders difficult responsibilities and burdens of the struggle. A struggle that is not complete. A struggle that must be carried forward to its logical conclusion. Abantu bakithi kumele bangafuni phela ukuqasha when we must ensure that they own all productive assets and become employers and become self-employed. You've got to create an ANC Youth League that are the repositories of knowledge. An ANC Youth League where all the best and brightest minds among our people are found, which when it speaks, the nation wants to listen. Because even when you are wrong, but at least what you are saying makes sense and you will be corrected in the course of time, we understand that you were wrong because you are young and inexperienced, and somebody with better experience and knowledge will be able to impart on you better. It is a revolution because it must, in the end, not leave our society the same way as it is today. But the white ruling bloc has always been worried about this. And yes, they accepted loss of power, but they never gave up. At first, they relied on their control of the economy and used it as a countervailing measure to keep the political ruling bloc in check. Manje nizama ukuphasisa imithetho banitshela ukuthi irani ama-investors obaleka abantu ngeke basa-invest eSouth Africa manenza lento le, and they were clear ukuthi kunemithetho abangeke bayibekezelele because they were using their economic power, their economic muscle as a dual power to keep the democratic government in check, ensure that it's able to transform society in the manner we wanted. And that is why you had the property clause in the Constitution in 1993, and that is why the Reserve Bank's mandate was changed from a dual mandate of managing inflation and creating jobs and growing the economy to only managing inflation. Because what the white ruling bloc does not want is an ANC strong enough to implement structural transformation. They want reforms. They don't have a problem with reforms. Build people houses, give poor people water, give poor people free basic electricity, give them pensions, but don't transform the structure of the economy and change property relations in that process. In order to ensure that that does not happen, the only way is to divide the ANC, to split it at every moment you get, to divide the black majority and give black people as many political organizations as possible that are fighting and squabbling and quibbling, that can never agree on anything significant. What does the ANC Youth League say about this? Generation of 1944 responded to this challenge. After the formation of the All-African Natives Congress, the ANC set up a team to negotiate with them. As they negotiated with them, and that team was made up of eminent people. Moses Kutale was there, Comrade Mandela, Lebede was part of that delegation, J.P. Marx was part of that delegation, and many others. They almost agreed. The ANC had made a proposal that for the sake of unity we are even prepared to merge and have an all-African national Congress. Man, we almost did not find the ANC. We almost found an ANC. What changed conditions and eventually killed the All-African Natives Congress, affirmed the existence of the ANC, was the Program of Action of 1948. Because that Program of Action and the type of mature leadership we had at the time made sure that the African people eventually realized that it's just a lashega. The ANC Youth League has to answer this question. You can't leave this question unattended. That does not resolve the urgent problems of our revolution and how we sustain it going forward. It resolves our immediate problems as individuals. It's not about how we resolve the problems of the revolution. It's about how we resolve our own immediate problems. But what will that 40% do if the ANC loses municipal elections next year? What will that 40% do if we lose general elections in 2020? here is the big question we must answer. We already have lost a lot of comrades who were MPs and MPLs in 2024. And because of that, there is a lot of comrades who are unemployed, who are looking for jobs, who, because they no longer have a sustainable income and their families are suffering, they now are available to be bought as cannon fodder whenever conferences come. The more we have unemployment, the more we have vulnerable comrades who are available to be bought to support individuals at ANC conferences without them knowing that makuphela le mali then kuzokwenzakalani kimi. The problem with that is that politics gets commodified. Policies of the ANC are bought. The leadership gets commodified. And we sit with a problem that when we address renewal, we don't address. Because the weakness is that we focus on how each individual must behave evangelically and not how we deal with the structural problems of society, because you can never distance the internal weaknesses of the ANC from the structural problems of the economy and society in general. So yes, we want ANC members to be ethical. Yes, we want ANC members to behave in a way that affirms confidence in the ANC. But for us to do that, we must address at the same time, and most importantly, the structural problems of the economy. What does the ANC say about it? What do you suggest we do with that? What is your program to ensure that we restore the unity of the movement? Restore its political cohesiveness, and restore not its former glory. We don't fight for a glorious past. We fight for a glorious future. What are you saying we should do in order to restore the ANC to its future glory? These are the questions that face your generation. Questions as a result of which you must always go back to Anthony Lembede when he said, we are not called to enjoyment, but we are called to struggle. That we need youth of stoic discipline, whose only obsession is the struggle of the African people and the black majority for total emancipation. You need to help us deal with this problem. You have seen the ANC support peak around 2004, 2009, and we have seen it drop. Now, this could be a scenario. I'm not saying it's going to happen, I'm saying it could be a scenario. In 2024, we've already seen the ANC dropping below 50%, being a minority party in the GNU. The white ruling bloc, the white ruling class, the neo-colonial bourgeoisie, call them by their right name. The neo-colonial bourgeoisie comrades who keep on losing their positions in parliament, in legislature, and in municipalities, and join the ranks of the unemployed, are no longer available as full-time organizers of the ANC, because to have them in such large numbers ensured that the ANC had many hundreds and thousands of full-time organizers. But it will not end in us dropping that load. Their ultimate aim is either to convert the ANC into a black version of the DA, liberal, neoliberal, or at best to destroy the ANC. We've got to do all we can to stop it. We've got to work tirelessly to change that narrative. Part of what it requires is for us to be genuine in our discourses, in our debates and discussions, to be fearless in our thinking, to be fearless in our articulation of what we think, and be fearless in what we do, to be utmost loyal to the movement, even when that may make some people be unhappy with you. We owe our allegiance only to the ANC and to nobody else. No individual is above the ANC. We must make our people to appreciate the ANC. So my only message in my short remarks is that be preoccupied with the struggle of our people, with the unity and cohesion, as well as leadership of the struggle of the ANC, and with the role of the youth in that struggle. For that to happen, raise the competencies, the caliber, and the quality of the youth cadreship of the ANC to a level where every young person will look up to you and not down at you. To advance society in your conduct, not through arrogance. And always remain utmost loyal to the ANC and our revolution at all times. Long live the ANC Youth